You've shot your JPEG and RAW images at correct exposure, 2 stops over and 2 stops under. It's time to open them up in RAW to try and make your overexposed and underexposed ones look like the correctly exposed ones. So I'm just going to press Command A here to select all the files, and I'm going to right click or control click and open in Camera Raw, because you can also process JPEG files in RAW. So okay, so even looking at the files straight out of camera, the JPEG looks different to the RAW file, and that's because a JPEG is processed in camera. It's applied the camera's colour settings, saturation, sharpness, etc. So it looks different from the word go. So if you've done this correctly, your shot will be 2 stops underexposed, and the way to try and make it look like the original is just to grab the exposure slider and drag it to +2. Right, so the RAW file that was underexposed, if I compare it to the correctly exposed one, it's pretty much the same. Now we've corrected it. The underexposed JPEG, I'll do the same to that. Okay, +2. And again, it's fairly similar, to the JPEG. And you'll probably find you're losing a little bit of detail in the shadows, but we'll come back to that. Okay, now onto the overexposed one. We're going to take that to -2 to be the same as the correctly exposed one. So if I compare it again, pretty similar. RAW's done a fairly good job of overexposure. We still get detail there, in the fore, that's fine. But watch what happens when we try to make the overexposed JPEG the same as the correct exposure. Alright, that's gone really weird. Really weird colour shift. No detail whatsoever in there. In fact, it's all gone very grey. And that's basically because a JPEG doesn't have as much information as a RAW file does, and it just can't handle overexposure at all. Look at the histogram of the overexposed JPEG compared to the RAW file. It's just not handling it at all. There's no information there to pull back. So hopefully you've found the same by editing your own files, and you've seen that JPEG really can't handle overexposure, and this is why you should be shooting RAW rather than JPEG.